Welcome to an introductory course on SharePoint document libraries. Let's start off by answering a simple question. What is a document library? A document library is a place on a SharePoint site where you can share files with other people at your company. Let me show you an example. Right now, we're at a SharePoint site for a company called Contoso, and this particular site is for the sales team. Now there's a lot to do here on this site. It looks like we have an announcements list here. We have a calendar and various other links. But if we click this link over here called Shared Documents, we'll see a document library. And you'll notice that people have added files to this library. You can add almost any kind of file to a library, but most of the time you'll be putting Office files in a document library. So for example, you'll put Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, Excel spreadsheets, and even OneNote files in a document library. Once these files are added to the library, they're up here on the site so that the rest of the team can read and edit them. Now you might be wondering, why would I use a document library? If I wanted to share out this Word file, for example, why wouldn't I just attach it to an email message and send it out to a bunch of people? Well, if you sent it as an attachment to, let's say, 5 people, and then those 5 people make changes, you now have 5 copies of the document running around. And that's a lot to keep track of. Instead, if you put that file here in the document library, everyone can add their changes to this one file, which means you only have one copy to keep track of. You might also be thinking, I won't send anything in email, but I can certainly go to Windows Explorer and I can type in the path to my favorite file share and maybe a documents folder somewhere. And sure, you could always do that, but the problem with that is you're missing out on some pretty handy features that a document library gives you. In fact, you're missing out on a lot of features, but I'll list off just a few to give you an idea. The first reason? Version history. You can set up a library to track version history for your files. So for example, if I hover over this Word file here, click this down arrow, and then click version history, I can see that the library has tracked several versions for this file. These are versions that have been made over time. We see that Sean edited the file on March 7th at 12:15, Molly on March 4th at 4:32, and so forth and so on. Another reason for using a library instead of a file share? Email alerts. You can have a library configured to send you email when a file is added or changed. So for example, if I click this arrow here again, I'll see this alert me command available. And if I click this command, I can tell the library to alert me when this particular file has changed. So email alerts are another good reason for using a library versus a file share. The other really good reason is co-authoring. Co-authoring means that more than one person can open and work on a file at the same time. So for example, in this spreadsheet here, if I click Edit in Browser real quickly, and let's say I'm just working on this file, I'm entering data in here. And if I look in the lower right-hand corner, I can see that I'm not the only person editing this file. We have 2 people editing. We have Sean Chai, and that's me. I'm currently logged on as Sean Chai. And we have Molly Clark, also working on this file at the same time as me. Now, what happens if we both make conflicting changes? Well, it can depend on which program you are using, but in this case, the last person to change a cell will overwrite the other person's changes to that cell. There are other details to know about when it comes to co-authoring, but for now, know that co-authoring is another great reason to use a document library. So the next question that you might have is, where do I find a document library? Well, most likely your team has a SharePoint site set up already. Ask them where that is. It may look similar to this one, or it could be quite different, but look around and most likely you'll find a link to a library over here on the left. Shared Documents is a very common name for a document library. You also might see something called Documents or Team Documents, something of that nature. Your company may also have a My Site for you. A My Site is a personal website created especially for you at your company. Here's an example of Sean Chai's My Site at Contoso. And if we go to his My Content area, Sure enough, we can see over on the left he has two libraries available for him, personal documents and shared documents. You can also make your own library, and we'll go back to the sales site to do that. To make a library, go to the Site Actions menu and then click New Document Library. Then you name it here, so I'll name it Sales Documents, and then click Create. Great, now we have a brand new, empty document library ready to be used. I need to mention one important thing before we start using this library. This course and the other courses in this series are all about using document libraries on SharePoint 2010. That is, your site should be running on a server with SharePoint Foundation 2010 or SharePoint Server 2010. If you're not sure which one you have, look up here. If you see the Browse, Documents, and Library tabs, most likely you have SharePoint 2010. If you're still unsure, ask your administrator or IT department which version you have. And the other thing I need to mention is that we'll be using Office 2010 in this course, specifically Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote 2010. To check which version of Office you have, open one of your Office programs, and I'll open Word here. Go to the File tab, click Help, and then note your version over here. If you have an earlier version, like 2007, or if you don't have a Help option on the File tab here, then most likely you have an older version of Office. Now you may be able to still take these courses and learn the basics of document libraries, but certain features we demonstrate may not be available to you. So we recommend getting Office 2010 if at all possible. Okay, we've shown you what a document library is, how to make one, and the tools you need. Let's get started working with document libraries.